Welcome to today's video. Today, Mountain Savage Northwest is going to show you how to replace an ICP sensor on a 6-liter diesel. Thanks for watching. Okay, we got an 03 6-liter here. We're working on the ICP back in the back down there. Here's the connector for it. A lot of guys have been going down through here, through the top. I don't know if they got girl hands or what's going on, but I cannot fit my hand down in there. So what I ended up having to do was I ended up having to pull that bottom heat shield off. And I'll show you guys where that's located. And ended up having to go kind of from the top and from the bottom on this sucker. It's a really pain in the butt to get to, but my truck was basically blowing oil out of the top of it, just like all the other ones. But you want to check this connector and make sure it's not yellowed or brown or anything like that. Spray it down with some electrical cleaner and plug her back in. You should be good to go. Okay, so I've got a extension here with a bend, a flex head on it, and it goes down to a 1 1/16 inch socket down there and down in the hole. What I had to do was I had to put this extension down through here, kind of let it rest down there, and then I had to jump underneath the truck, pull that heat shield off, and then push the socket onto the ICP with my hand, and then come up top and then get my ratchet on here and loosen it up. So I kind of had to, you know, use both angles to get that thing on there and get it turned out of there. So the first steps you're going to want to do is you're going to want to pull your degas bottle out, pull your whole air intake out, and then just pull the fickum out. And if you can't get those connectors from the fickum off, these guys here, can't get those off, kind of push in on them and then pull them back out. You push up, you'll kind of feel a little click and then pull back down. So yeah, you want to pull all that crap out of your way, otherwise it's going to be a nightmare to get in there and try and get this thing out of there. So this is what you're going to see when you got a bad ICP. You're going to see that sucker just loaded with oil, and that's where all your oil leaking out, around the bottom, around the connector, around the O-ring, you name it. This thing's pouring oil out of it, and when it goes out, you're going to have a really rough idle. You're going to have starting issues. You're going to have all kinds of issues with your injectors. So here's what I'm going to use to clean the electrical connectors. This is what this stuff is designed and made to do. It's a CRC QD electronic cleaner, and it's safe for electronics, and it dries quick and all that good stuff. So that'll get all the oil and gunk down here out of this ICP connector down here, and we'll blow it out good with air and get that thing all nice and cleaned up. But yeah, you definitely want to do that. You want to definitely check it, make sure it ain't burnt or, you know, hot or anything like that. This one looks pretty decent. Still got to clean it, but before we clip that thing in there, we're going to want to get that thing sprayed down with that CRC and get that thing cleaned out. Okay, I'm crammed under the truck, so I'm trying to get the best shot as I can under here. But you're going to see the oil start dripping down the backside right on the front of your transmission. That's where it's going to start dripping if your ICP is leaking. And I noticed a rough idle plus oil in the driveway. That plus that equals bad ICP. Okay, so right here, right where my finger's out, right where my finger's wiggling, that's where my socket, my 1 1/16 inch socket is coming in. So here's your Y pipe right directly under the turbo. The heat shield goes right here. And there's 3 bolts on that heat shield. When I put that heat shield back in, I'm only going to put in the ones that are easy to get to, because it don't need 3 bolts holding that sucker on there. That thing goes flying off with 2 bolts in it, and your whole freaking motor is going to be flying out before that'll happen. So anyways, I'll show you guys better where the bolts go on that later on, but that's where the socket comes in, and I have to reach up from down here to push that socket onto that ICP. But I'm threading in the new ICP just gently. Just feel those threads. Don't want to cross thread it, because then you're going to be in a world of hurt. But I'm going to gently thread that thing in there, then shove that socket over the top of it. All right, there's a pretty decent shot right there of that 1 1/16 socket right there, shoved on that ICP from down below. Again, I just kind of angled my extension down into the hole, kind of in the general area, and then I grab it from the bottom and shove it on there. I could not get my hand in there to shove that socket on there for the life of me from the top. So that's why I ended up having to come down here and take that heat shield off. It's really not that big of a deal to do the heat shield. It's literally 2 10 millimeters and 1 13 millimeter. It's really not that bad. I did have to pull my front driveline off because this is a 4-wheel drive truck I'm working on. So I pulled the front driveline off, and I literally just have my head right up where the driveline would go. And I got pretty decent but crappy access. Okay, so we're back on the top of the truck now. So I got my extension shoved down in there, and it's got a swivel on the end of it with that 1 1/16 socket on the end of it, and it goes right over the top of the ICP. It's almost like a 45. And I'll show you guys all the extensions I'm using when we get done here. But so now I'm gonna put one more shorty little extension on here, and then I can get my ratchet on there and crank her down just snug. Boom, right there. That's all it takes. Just snugging it up. I tighten the rest of it all up by hand. You can see that wrench right on there. And it goes down to that swivel, and it'll just hook right on there. So there, that's actually a really good shot of that swivel. And that goes right down to that socket and then comes straight up here, right up to the ratchet. That's a pretty good shot right there. I'll show you guys what's going on down there. Because that thing sits in there at a ridiculous angle down in there. It's straight across under the turbo and the Y pipe and all that. So, all right, hook her back up. So I'm also gonna want to plug this in down below the truck, the wiring harness, because I can't plug it in from the top. I can't reach it. So I'm gonna just kind of feed it down in there, and then we'll go under the truck and I'll plug it in. Okay guys, here you can see my wiring harness here hanging down. ICP's right there just above it. There's a little tab on the top of it, or wherever you tighten the tightening point, there'll be a little tab on there. You'll feel the little nub. That's the way you want your harness to face, with the clip in the same direction as that bump, because that's where it's going to lock in and over it. Again, sorry for the poor filming. There just isn't much room. I'm trying to show as much as I can of this. So you're just going to want to get it up in there, kind of wiggle it on there and clip it in. Once it clips once, you're good. Okay guys, this is the best shot I can get of it, of hooking up the wiring harness. So my right arm is bent up and through in between the firewall and the transmission, and I got my hand on it. I can feel with my right finger that nub on the ICP is right on the top, and then right where my clip is. So I just kind of wiggle it, and you'll hear that click. There you go. It'll kind of feel like it's not lined up right, but it's just that rubber booting around the outside edge. And you just kind of gently wiggle and then just snap it over that, and you're good. And then the last thing we're gonna wanna do is spray all this up here down with brake cleaner and clean all that oil off there, because you wanna know if it's leaking. Once you get it fixed, you wanna know if it's leaking again. So spray all that down and clean all that old oil off there, up and behind where the heat shield goes and all that especially. And then put the heat shield back in will be the next step. And guys, I can't stress it enough. It didn't happen this time, but wear safety glasses when you do your brake cleaner, because I've gotten that crap in my eyes so many times and it sucks. So just put on your safety glasses, and because that stuff will spray everywhere, especially when you're spraying up above yourself and all that. Just do yourself a favor and learn from my mistakes and put on some safety glasses. That stuff sucks. All right, moving on to the last step down here under the truck. We got the heat shield here. You need to put this back on over that sensor, because if not, the heat and everything else will just tear that sensor up even faster than it goes out normally. So this is exactly how it'd be sitting underneath the truck. So you got one way up on top of the transmission, a 10 mil here, You got another 10 mil here, and then you got a 13 mil here, which sits right behind your exhaust manifold, and I'll show you where that's at. It's not too bad to get it in and out of there. I may or may not put this bolt back in. I'm not sure yet. I'm gonna see how it feels once I get it under there. But definitely this one here and that one there are relatively easy to get to. Okay, so I've maneuvered the heat shield back up and in there. You just kind of come up at it with an angle and then flip it up under there. It's still loose. But right here is where the first 10 mil bolt is. The one other 10 mil bolt is way back over in here, back on the other side. And then you got the other one, which is located directly in between here and here, in between this heat shield and there. That's where the other bolt's at. So there's only one way that this heat shield's gonna go on there correctly. It's kind of a pain to get it all lined up, but what I've learned is get this center one in first. It'll kind of hold it in position to where then you can go ahead and get this other bolt up in there. And I'll try and get a shot of that, trying to get that other 13 mil bolt in there. It's not easy, but it can be done. So there's that top bolt going in. What I ended up having to do is just take a short 3/8 extension with a 13 mil and grease the top of the bolt, put a little dab of grease on there so the bolt will stay in there and won't come out as easy. And then that way you can kind of maneuver it up and in here. You got to go over this pipe with the extension and then hook up the socket on that side onto the head of the bolt. But I just kind of pushed it through as an assembly, and I'm able to go ahead and hand crank that thing in there, tighten that 13 mil up, and we'll crank her down tight and we'll be good to go. As you guys can kind of see in this shot here, that's the whole deal there. You can barely get your wrench up in there above the transmission to turn this thing. And you're gonna have to get creative with your extension. But that's snug. That ain't going nowhere. Now I just gotta tighten that other 10 mil and we'll be good. All right, so here we are tightening up this last bolt. This 10 mil right here in the middle. All right, she's snug. And then there is that one other bolt way back over here above the transmission, but feeling this thing, I cannot wiggle it whatsoever. Even back there, it's tight. I mean, it's not gonna rattle or make any noise or anything like that. So I think I'm good with just the 2 bolts, but I'll save the third one just in case. If things start rattling or something like that, I'll throw it in there, but that'll make it easier if I ever got to change out this ICP again, just to have just these 2 bolts to deal with and not that third one. All right, we should be done under here and go back up top and put everything back together. So the first thing you're gonna have to put back in once you get back up top of the truck is your fickum up here just under your degas bottle. So this has your 3 wiring harnesses, and as good old Diesel Tech Ron taught us all, if you can't get these out, kind of push in on them and then wiggle them out. It just kind of helps release these clips on the top here. Rest in peace, Diesel Tech Ron. You taught us all a lot of good little tricks. Appreciate your help, brother. All right, so we got all the wiring harnesses all hooked back up. We got the bolts through the front here, and crank those down, just snug them up. Front ones here are a 13 mil. And then we got to get these back bolts all snugged up. The back 2 are a 14 mil. Get those all snugged up and we'll be ready to put the intake back in. So on this 03, there's the 2 little nuts here on the outside edges, and then the one here. Just make sure and snug those up, but don't over tighten them, because this one up here is broken off already. But that's normal. It's a 6.0. There's got to be something broken, right? Go ahead and snug those down, and then we'll be good to go to put the intake back in, air intake. So these outer 2 are a 10 mil, and then this inner one's an 8 mil. And I know you guys have already probably done all this since you've already obviously done the ICP. I'm just doing this just to refresh on all that stuff. One of the things I haven't seen many guys talk about on these videos is when you have this intake out, is a good time to look at this crankcase vent. It's a CCV tube, and it's got an O-ring on the bottom of it. You just pull it out. This one, the O-ring is actually pretty much all the way, just, I think it's actually gone. So I'm gonna have to get a new one of those and get that snapped on there. But once you get the new O-ring on there, you just snap it back down in there and it's a nice tight fit. But this is a good time to check that. All right, so we got the air intake all put back in. All our clips and everything are all nice and secure. Wiring harnesses for the sensors are all snapped in. Thickums back in. So we're about ready to put the degas bottle back in and get a little coolant in this thing and get her started up, see if she's leaking oil. All right, degas bottle's back in. Got some coolant loaded in there. About ready to start this thing up, see how she runs, see if there's any oil leaking out of that ICP or anything. Should notice right away that it fires up easier and better idle and all that good stuff. So, all right, let's see what she does. All right, so here we are in the truck now looking at the dash. So before it was running rougher than a corn cob. It would start, but it was starting rough. That last time, this is a cold start, about 28 degrees right now. I'm working on it. So that was a cold start. It started really good. So far, everything's running really smooth. It hasn't ran this good in a long time. So tomorrow I'll take it out for more of a test run and we'll see how she does. But as far as I can tell right now, it's running good. So you can see there it automatically revved her up to about 1,000 because it's so cold out, but everything's running smooth. Injectors sound really good. The Pre Clatter sounded really good, sounded way better than it usually does. And that's what I noticed, was I'm just like, this thing is running super rough just at slow speeds and at an idle. And then it had kind of a dead spot on the freeway, about 60, 65 miles an hour. It would hit like a dead spot and it would just not want to run right until I got her up to like 70, 75-ish, and then it would run better. But something just wasn't right. So that thing's probably, that ICP's probably been leaking oil for a while. And just periodically over time, the leak just got worse and worse until I actually seen where the oil was coming from. So I'm gonna tap the brake here. She'll drop back down to about little over 500, but that's right where you want it. All right, so as I said in the video, I had that CCV hose coming down and the O-ring was completely gone. So here's that part number for that CCV O-ring that you're gonna want to get. I went and stopped by Ford today and got one. It's like a $3 part, so it's definitely something that's easy to replace when you got your intake out. And there's the O-ring there itself. So yeah, definitely something cheap and easy that you want to swap out when you get in there and get to that CCV hose. Okay, I just wanted to take a moment and go over the sockets and the extensions that I used. So it's a 1 1/16 socket. You're going to want to make sure that you have one of these before you start taking this thing apart. I did not have one, so I had to go buy one. I got one on Amazon. I think it was like 10 bucks, maybe even less than that. But that is kind of a weird size socket that you're probably not going to have laying around in your kit. And then on the 1 1/16, I have a swivel joint. This one's a 3/8. It's one I had laying around, so I grabbed that one. And then I have obviously a 3/8 half adapter down here on this one. And then the extensions that I used, the first one was a 6-inch and then a 3-inch. Now I tried just the standard 9-inch, but I found it easier to shove the to put the 6-inch with the swivel down in there, and then add this one later on once I got everything already down inside behind down where the ICP is. I don't know if that's the correct way to do it or whatnot, but this is the way I found to do it. And it just kind of swivels in there just like that, and you can get on there and get it out of there. And then the extension that I used to get the heat shield was just the standard 3-inch, and that was the one that I put in over the exhaust, and was able to put some the 13mm socket, just a shorty, not an extendo because it was too long. So just a shorty on this 3-inch, you were able to get it up and over that Y pipe. And I put some grease in the 13mm to hold that bolt in there while I just kind of hand threaded that extension in there. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching. Appreciate it. If you want more videos on the 6-liter, or you have any questions, comment down below, and catch you next time. Keep on trucking. As always, the best part of the day when working on your 6-liter, ice cold beer. I may not be a pro, but she's still running.